Have you ever noticed how quickly admiration can turn into resentment? How a friend who once cheered for you suddenly pulls away? Or how a colleague who praised you yesterday begins to quietly undermine you today? And perhaps most unsettling of all, how hostility can arrive without reason, as if you had triggered something invisible in others. In this video, we'll explore the hidden psychological and social forces behind these sudden shifts, drawing from Carl Jung's theory of the shadow, modern research on projection, envy, and social power dynamics, and the disruptive influence of authenticity. By the end, you'll understand why people may suddenly begin to hate you, even when you've done nothing wrong, and why their reaction often reveals more about them than about you. Before we begin, make sure to subscribe to the Mental Dose channel and join our Telegram community for early access to new videos and insights on personal and spiritual growth. We often assume that when people turn against us, it must be because of something we said or did. That's why rejection feels so personal. We take it as proof that we failed in some way. But in truth, much of what others project onto us has little to do with our behavior. When you understand these hidden dynamics, you stop carrying the unnecessary weight of self-blame. You begin to see that hostility is not always a verdict on your character, but a reflection of someone else's inner conflict. Carl Jung described the shadow as the unconscious container for everything a person rejects about themselves. Repressed emotions, forbidden desires, and unhealed shame. The shadow never disappears. It simply hides, shaping how we perceive others, often without realizing it. This is why your presence can feel threatening. If you embody traits someone has buried, confidence, independence, kindness, you awaken their shadow. They don't see you as you are. They see the reflection of what they cannot accept within themselves. Jung warned that without awareness, the shadow is projected outward, turning others into enemies. In this sense, hatred is often nothing more than a mirror of what a person refuses to face inside. Projection is how the shadow escapes into the world. When people can't face certain truths about themselves, they unconsciously see those qualities in others. Modern psychology recognizes projection as a defense mechanism that protects the ego from painful self-awareness. The one who calls you arrogant may secretly crave recognition. The colleague who resents your ambition may be struggling with their own wasted potential. Once projection begins, hostility feels justified, even when it has nothing to do with you. That's why hatred can feel so sudden. It isn't about your actions. It's about their inner conflict, displaced onto you. Recognizing this frees you from the trap of self-blame. Think about everyday life. At work, a colleague subtly undermines you, not because your performance threatens the company, but because it threatens their self-image. A friend grows distant when you start succeeding in areas where they feel stuck. These behaviors are not about you. They are projections of frustration and insecurity. When you recognize that, you stop confusing someone's resentment with evidence that you've done something wrong. Every relationship carries invisible hierarchies. Who leads, who follows, who validates, who seeks validation. These dynamics are rarely spoken of, yet they silently shape behavior. When you begin to grow, when you set boundaries, succeed, or simply step out of the role others assigned you, the balance shifts. The friend who relied on your compliance may now resent your independence. The colleague who once felt superior may feel diminished by your confidence. Even family members may resist your growth if it unsettles the emotional roles they depend on. Sociologist Pierre Bourdieu observed that people constantly negotiate status and recognition. When that balance is disrupted, resentment often follows. So the hostility you face is rarely about your choices, it's about what those choices represent in the silent hierarchy. And then there's envy, one of the most powerful and poisonous emotions. Unlike anger, envy hides itself. It shows up in silence, in distance, in the sudden absence of support. Research by Smith and Kim, 2007, defines envy as both the painful awareness of another's advantage and the desire to reduce it. And it often comes from those closest to us. A stranger may admire your success, but a friend might experience it as a personal threat. Your growth highlights their stagnation. Your freedom exposes their fear. Instead of using that discomfort to grow, they retreat into quiet resentment. This is why admiration can so easily turn into rivalry. The same person who once celebrated your success now downplays or dismisses it. Envy corrodes trust, slowly poisoning relationships until they fracture. Before we move on, if this video is giving you a new perspective on why people turn against you, share it with someone who needs to hear this. And if you'd like to support thoughtful content like this, use the thanks button below. Your support truly makes a difference. But perhaps the greatest trigger of all is authenticity. To live authentically means aligning your life with your values, dropping the masks that win approval but suffocate your soul. Research by Kernis and Goldman, 2006, found that authenticity strongly correlates with well-being, but it also disrupts illusions. Most people depend on roles and masks to protect fragile identities. When you choose to live authentically, you unsettle those illusions. You remind others of the compromises they have made, the truths they've buried, and the dreams they have abandoned. That's why authenticity provokes resistance. People may accuse you of arrogance or selfishness not because you are those things, but because your authenticity exposes their inauthenticity. And yet, authenticity is contagious. Even those who resent you may secretly long for the same freedom you embody. So why do people suddenly start to hate you often? It's not about who you are but about what you awaken in them. You remind them of their shadow, you disrupt their hidden hierarchies, your success stirs envy. Your authenticity threatens their illusions. Carl Jung once wrote, "Knowing your own darkness is the best method for dealing with the darkness of other people." When you recognize hostility for what it is, a projection of inner battles, you gain freedom. You stop shrinking to fit illusions. You stop blaming yourself for the wars others fight in silence. And most importantly, you keep living authentically even if it unsettles others. Because the greatest threat you pose is not your mistakes, but your truth. And truth, once embodied, has the power to transform not only you but also those who resist you the most.